Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. My name is Chris, and I get the honor of being your host today. But as usual, I know you guys aren't here today to listen to me. So today the topic is onboarding, customer onboarding, the digital variety, a rather pertinent topic for banks and other financial institutions, and one that has likely caused some rather forced adoptions lately, just to keep pace. And while if I'm being honest, I think I had a really good introduction to this whole webinar written. I'm going to choose to scrap it and talk about why I was late for work this morning. So if you've seen any of our virtual events before, you know or probably have heard the fact that I have a 2-year-old. And as a parent can recognize, it's impossible to get a 2-year-old to be still for even more than 5 minutes. So being a good father, I wanted to start a college fund for him. So I somehow managed to actually get him and myself to the bank before it closed yesterday. And apparently I got a good way through the whole process of creating his account until Aiden had enough and we had to get out of there. But I was told as I had my son under one arm that don't worry, you can do this whole thing online. And just I kind of had this gut feeling that I wouldn't be I lacked the optimism that he seemed to have in that statement. And lo and behold, when I came home, I saw that I had to start the whole application over again. And so I'm like, forget it, I'll just do it early in the morning if I can do it online. And I start doing it online in the morning. And then what does it ask me to do? To go right back to that exact same bank I was just at, just to verify exactly who I am. So aside from me asking for a new recommendation on a bank, which will remain nameless right now, I'm very blessed to have two experts that not only can I vent to about this whole thing and will know exactly what I'm talking about, but they'll be able to provide some practical advice on to how this doesn't need to be a problem anymore and how banks could move forward. So I'd like to introduce Donish and Gazemfer. Thank you so very much for joining me here today.
Thanks, Chris, for having us over.
Yeah,
Uh, to your experience, first of all, I think your concern over your lack of optimism in completing the process and your hesitation is quite natural. I think all our customers are going through that. And firstly, and secondly, a little bit of it is your fault because your expectations have changed as a consumer, and we'll talk a little bit about that also. So, it's a good segue into our conversation today. That's exactly what we help our clients address the challenges that you face as a
yeah. And admittedly, maybe my expectations have probably changed a little bit. Maybe I'm a bit spoiled when it comes to my digital experiences over, banks, financial institutions, any heavily regulated body. I equate with efficiency, specifically with banks. However, these days, experiences are currency, and it seems that efficiency is the last thing used to describe them. So aside from my own growing personal vendetta against the banking industry right now, we'll start with you, Donish. I'm curious, what drivers do you see essentially kind of causing these transformations, or hopefully we're going to see a bit sooner than later in the a transformation in the onboarding model.
So thanks, Chris. I think what we must appreciate now. I think two things that have really changed over the last decade, probably, um, is and is to do with the customers themselves. I think the first is that people, and this has evolved with the customers' expectation and their demand in all the things that they've learned to deal with very recently, which is they've learned to interact with the Googles, the Apples, the Amazons, the Facebooks of the world, which are extremely efficient user experience. They're used to getting things done fast and quickly, and unfortunately, the financial institutions haven't been able to adopt all of those efficiencies into their customer engagement model. And the two key factors that stand out now from a customer perspective are customers value experience over products. So they value the experience should be better, more efficient, faster than the products they get, because the banking products, financial services products generally are quite vanilla. And the second is that the customers now expect or want to experience convenience over privacy. So very recently, their consumers are willing to let go of a little bit of privacy to get the convenience they want. They want things to be integrated. They want things to move fast. They're confident of leaving information over to the banks or the other institutions which can be used. And we will talk about open banking for in a bit. But I think so. What the transition, what has happened is experience over products and convenience over privacy. Those are the two fundamental customer expectations or the concept that has changed the industry. And unfortunately, the banks have not adopted to as fast as they should have. And that is, and talking about customer expectations, and that is what is really happening. I've seen a lot of research, and recently research that I read said the customers, 51% of customers drop off their onboarding or acquisition journey with the bank, with a financial institution, because of the length of the process. The process takes too long. People don't have the patience anymore. About 46% leave because the customer convenience or interface isn't friendly enough for them to proceed. 41% who start the process digitally never return if they log out, or if their process is too long, and if it's asking for too much information. So those are some of the key variables that have changed customer expectations, and that where the financial institutions have a lot of catching up to do to deliver the differentiated experience, or the experience that they're used to from the non-financial services that these customers interact with, you and me and all of us being those customers. I would ask Ghazanfar to also add any thoughts on the industry side if he has any. Ghazanfar?
Yeah, Danish, I agree with this. So when we look at, especially the financial institutions, it's a heavy regulated industry, right? And their processes are still, we would say, decades old, right? The ones that they invented most likely in the 60s and 70s is what they're still following, right? They don't treat customer journey as a journey. The journey is actually inside a bank where the customer file actually moves from one department to the other, right? So a lot of issues, just to make that seamless onboarding journey for the customer, they are actually struggling a lot with the processes, the systems. Like, people work in silos. They're unable to bring the automation in there, right? Their technology is non-modular. A lot of this has changed in last, I would say, 3-4 years, where this technology is actually available for everyone, right? So, for example, if you want to verify someone's identity, it's all there, right? It's already open source. There are some type of SaaS tools available for banks to even verify the identity of a customer, just to extract. Also for document organization and scanning. All of this can happen in the matter of few seconds. Then it would take days and a manual interaction with people, right? That's where we come in, and we actually help our customers achieve the optimal onboarding experience.
So you both kind of mentioned, respectively, to your own fields of expertise, some of the challenges that are really driving the market. Now, that is a great segue to my next question, is, assuming these are widespread pain points felt by everybody, now, how are these being addressed? We'll keep it going with you, Ghazanfar.
Yeah, so as we look at, like, before we jump into how do we address this, we need to look at what the organizational challenges are, right? So the first touch point for the customer is on a non-digital channel is, I go to a bank, or I talk to a teller, right? Or on a digital channel, I may end up in a website or an app, right? That's where most of the disconnect actually is, right? That experience, either on digital or on physical, that's where it's very, very key and critical to meet the expectation of the customer at that point, right? The second challenge we see is actually on the system level, right? Whether it's internal system, some legacy system with the customers, right? They're not able to cope up with what the customer expectation is. The third one is, again, as I mentioned earlier, the processes are too old, too cumbersome, and there are too many layers involved in getting the file moved from one place to the other, right? So if we look at now with those unoptimized journeys, we see about 85%. So what banks have usually done is they've taken the same process, same applications, most of them, I'm not saying like all of them, but most of them. What they've done is they've actually taken the same flow in the process and put it online. Long forms, you have to go through certain steps, you have to go and manually verify your identity, right? And one of the surveys and the research that came across, it shows us that there is about 85% drop from moving customer from one stage to the other. And this has actually a very huge financial impact. Imagine that you are spending like thousands and thousands of dollars of advertising in getting those new leads and customer, and you're just able to convert very few of them, right? According to a research, about for a financial institution, the cost of converting a customer is about $400, right? That's pretty high, right? Imagine a bank is like, and this is based on an actual data, right? The conversion ratio for financial institution is about 5.6%, right? So this is from add to click on a landing page and to starting that application, right? Not every one of them, and about 85% of them actually drop.
So they're spending all of this money sending them to a process, and essentially this process wasn't adapted for digital. It was just picked up and shifted to digital, and a facsimile of it was made.
Absolutely. And, to Zanfar's point earlier, I think, he touched upon the first challenge, which is, capturing the information, capture the customer. When the customer comes in, how do you make sure that you don't let that customer go? So how do you position the journey? How do you capture the customer information so that you can, even if the customer drops off, how do you actually get back to the customer and say, hey, you dropped off, how can we help you? How can we help you bring you back in to where you left off? That's number one. And at some stage, a lot of organizations, they're even rewarding the customers to come back and complete the journey to acquire a customer. Then Gazanpur talked about systems. A lot of these systems, a lot of the core banking softwares, are quite archaic and they need upgrading. So you can't have the same machine run a new face, right? So they want to run a nimble digital workflow or digital project, but the same systems aren't capable of doing that. The third thing for test one was process. Process is critical, right? How fast you can get the customer in and through your system to convert that customer into a revenue generating customer for you. The whole process is extremely critical. Gazanpur, could you walk us through some of the phases so that our audience better understand?
Yeah. So if we look at the customer journey from an organizational point of view, right? What we see is there are about 5 stages, right? The first one is the acquisition of data itself, right? How am I actually acquiring the data? So the customer has filled up the form, right? So at that point, more or less you captured the information. It could come from multiple channels. The customer could fill in themselves. It can come in from third-party portals. You are capturing documents in organization. That's the first stage where it's an acquisition stage. Once you have that data, the second part is actually the verification stage. What the customer is saying, is it true? Does it are they who they are saying they are, right? So this is where the verification part comes in. So your verification can happen, again, depending upon the product that you're offering to the customer. It may have a different regulatory requirement, but we have helped a lot of our customers verifying like a government issued ICs, for example, driving licenses or T4s and other documents, address where they work, their employment information, right? So this one is basically the verification part. The third part that we look at, once the customer information is now verified, we know that who they say are. This is basically a KYC, who they are, who they say they are. The third part becomes, what is the product that I'm offering? The bank might offer a credit card, personal loans or mortgage, or right. This is where we actually help also our customers run an automated risk and adjudication process, right? So whether it's based on the rules, based on heuristics, based on machine learning models, going through credit checks, giving a better price based on the profile of the customer. This is where the risk adjudication part is, right? The fourth part is either taking the payment or integrating with the other third-party payment provider. The fourth one is actually the provisioning of the service itself. So, for example, if I am trying to apply for a credit card online, and this is where we actually help one of our customer is, I go online, I submit an application, just few clicks, very short forms. We have all the automated processes. At the end, we actually issue a digital card that can be added to your Apple and Google Wallet. That's where the provisioning is. Right?
An instant generation of a virtual card
Yes.
to be added to your wallet, so you can get going
Yeah.
almost instantaneously as soon as you sign up.
And all of this journey can be 100% automated. No humans needed, right? In most of the cases, I would say. And this is instantaneous, right? I am a customer at my own pace, filling up at my own time. I can fill up the form and I can, if everything checks through, you can instantly in 5 steps actually get the card ready, done, add it to your wallet and start banking. And we call it about a 5-minute banking, right? So I can have my account activated without going anywhere. And we can help. So there is, again, from a banking point of view, there are a lot of checks and regulatory requirements involved. And with the technology currently available, it is all possible to do it in an automated manner. And this is where we are actually helping a lot of our customers achieve this process.
Chris, I'd also like to add, give Hasnt for a breather. I think it's also important to add that this is not just for banking, but across all financial institutions and most even non-financial institutions, because the customer, the customer journey is very similar wherever you want to acquire a new customer, be it telcos, be it insurance companies, be it other types of financial institutions, be it an individual customer, or an institution. I think the journey is relatively the same. It's just that the flow or the input variables need to be tweaked a little. So that is also an important point to understand.
No, absolutely. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, we have actually done tons of integrations with other third parties to actually achieve all of this, right? So from a lead gen point of view, right from starting from the ads for Facebook and Google to verifying the address with Canada Post and your face with your driving license with Jumio and other services, getting your credit report validated, checking the trade lines on your credit report to validate your credit worthiness with Equifax and TransUnion, going and checking whether there's an AML requirement, like extracting information from T4s. All of this we have achieved with the technology that is available these days.
So yeah, really just to echo Danish's point, it's just a matter of kind of switching out the variables and really any type of industry where some type of verification or is required, you could very easily just kind of subjugate this, this same process for it. I just wanted, so everything up until this point, I wanted to touch on two things, but both, the word and the theme itself, which has really just been the customer. We've talked about a lot of the customer here, the challenges that have arisen from the change in customer expectations. And you guys talked about this obviously very, very appealing end-to-end, completely digital journey, which I wish my bank I had yesterday. But my personal offense aside, obviously the idea of end-to-end digital banking is appealing, but by the same measure, that wasn't possible that long ago. It's it's kind of coming along the same lines when the technology is available. So that being said, from your perspectives, what trends do you see emerging as this technology kind of just furthers along? We'll start with you, Danish.
I think as far as what trends we see, we talked earlier about the fact that customers want everything and they want it now. I think that urgency, immediacy, expectation, that is a significant shift in the banking trend, whereas earlier financial services customers were okay to take an appointment, go visit the branch, sit, have a cup of tea or coffee, and then do their banking, be it over the counter or with their relationship person. That is now, I want everything in the palm of my hand, either mobile or desktop. I want to do everything myself. And you know what? Fundamentally, the journey is still the same, right? You browse, you see what you want, you buy, you sign up for a product or a service, and then you want self-serve, right?
Yeah.
You do things on your soul. The self-serve part is certainly that has drastically changed. So we talked about that earlier. Then access to information. There is so much now which wasn't there before. Previously, it used to be a phone call or a face-to-face appointment. Now everything is at your fingertips. You can text, you can do video, you can do, you can upload documents, you can actually, and we've done it. I mean, you can go through the whole process without talking to a single person. So high expectations, low patience, then cost consciousness. Customers don't, and even organizations don't want to spend too much time and money on their processes. They want to simplify it. They're conscious on time. Time is probably the single most valuable resource. Then we talked about earlier, I mentioned experience first. People are more focused on experience. They're more focused on the value, the bells and whistles, the freebies that the products offer, versus what the core functioning of the product. So there's a lot of you see a lot of ads now, on debt consolidation, balance transfer offers, reward programs, a sign up discounts, low interest rates, all of these gimmicks. Those are the things that interest the customers a lot more. Then I think moving forward, what we see from a technology perspective, we're going to see more conversational interfaces. You'll see a lot more bots. You'll see, a lot more self-serve, and that will be on the self-serve side. And privacy. We talked about privacy, right? Privacy is a big one as far as the emerging trends. I think people are very, very, very on who has the information and what is the depth of the information, but they want control on how they want their information to be used. They're okay with organizations having the banks or whoever having their information, but they want to have control of who they want to release the information to and how it is to be used. So I think that's another changing trend or behavior you will see, or you will continue to that will continue to evolve in the coming years. Kazanfer, you want to add something to that?
Yeah. So I second Danish on this, right? So we see the users growing impatient, right? They have access to tons of information, and they can make decisions very fast, right? So and the attention span is actually very low. So when it's your chance to get them now or they're gone, right? They don't wait. They have tons of information about your competitors. They will switch very easily, right? So it's very, very, very necessary to put the right information and build that relationship and provide them the information that they are seeking right there and then, right? So technologies like, conversational interfaces like chatbots, right? They help provide that information through machine learning and AI right on your site, right? I could type in any question. I don't need to have a 24/7 support line to answer the question, and the bot can answer your question right then and there, right? This is where we're seeing a lot of trend, and in some cases we have actually seen the relationship actually being managed digitally through bots in a hybrid model, through bots and humans together, right? Where the bots would reply maybe, let's say, 90% of your questions, and if there's something that they don't know or they don't have, goes back to a human right then and there, right? So this also reduces the cost of operations as well. Yeah.
This seems like a scary segue to like well, maybe not scary, but to a conversation for another day, but like a completely peopleless bank, like fully AI managed, very little interaction.
And
Sorry.
it is actually happening. If you, I don't know if you've ever called an Apple support line, 90% of it initially is actually taken by a bot, which is basically listening to the conversation on the phone itself, right? They would reply back, right? So it's already happening. Even a lot of banks that we have seen and financial institutions have actually implemented it, right? Now, on the banking side, the technologies and tools that are available for them, what we're seeing is that it's becoming an API first kind of economy around the data, right? Data is critical key, and to access that data, you need to actually, I would not say commoditize, but you need to make it accessible to people who want it when they want it, right? So it needs to be really, really accessible. It's not kind of like an old ETL jobs where, I am asking for something and then someone will take a dump, give me the entire database somewhere, and then I'll go analyze. No, no, no. That's gone, right? That's 80s, right? Now everything is we've seen the trend that banks are actually, or financial institutions are actually creating APIs for almost everything, right? Ingesting applications, processing automated decisions, right? That's a trend that we see in the industry, right? Also, on the open banking, right? A lot of banks have actually tried to form consortiums to exchange information, which is actually in their own benefit, right? We see robotic process automation being introduced to optimize the processes and flows themselves, right? Tasks which are repeatedly done by humans can be done by machines at a much faster pace and scale than humans can do, right? We see tons of AI and machine learning involved in doing predictions, right? How likely am I going to, so even in risk assessment, right? How likely am I going to pay my debt, and how quickly can I pay? This all can be profiled with machine learning. We see a rise in virtual assistants and chatbots. That's what I mentioned earlier, right? And a lot of financial institutions and I would say startups have actually started exploring the ledgers on the digital side, where including blockchain and other technology that is available. So that's a trend that we're seeing from a technology point of view, which basically supports the changing customer behavior.
Absolutely.
I thought you wanted to say something, Danish.
Yeah, no, I was just reiterating that some of the two big movements that we're going to see now on the financial services side are open banking, which Huzanfer talked about, but with some control, because there's a lot of controversy with regard to open banking. So there's still some regulation. There's already some regulation, and there's more regulation to come. And who's to use, how they were to use, and what value will open banking deliver to the customers. And the second big one is the DLT, distribution ledger, digital currencies, blockchain in tokenization, blockchain for storage, blockchain for authenticating transactions, blockchain for trade and custody related transactions. So that's another big one that's going to come. So distribution ledger is the second big one that's going to come. So from a technology perspective, those are the two big emerging trends or themes.
So needless, you don't, everybody can see that there's a fair bit kind of going on in the entire BFSI industry at the current moment. So we just talked about some of the trends and what you guys see coming in the near future. Kind of flipping the lid a little bit on that one. What are some of the pervasive challenges that you see going into the future that are still going to continue to plague a lot of these financial institutions? It's like, I as a customer, do you not know that Amazon exists and I'm a Prime member? Do you not know that I can get that I'm experienced, I know you are capable of doing this. Why aren't you giving it to me?
Yeah, I think from what are the challenges, the market looks, we talked about a lot of experience from a change, from bringing the change. I think, from my experience personally, I think the biggest change that people have to deal with in this, in their transformation journey, in the moving towards digital, is the cultural change. I think cultural is probably the biggest one I've seen. It's the organizations are so built in the ways they are, so asphyxiated with their own technology, their own processes, that there's always this fight or strife within the organization on what works right. If it's been working fine, why do we change it? And there are some people who are open to change, some aren't. There are different levels, tiers within the organization. Sometimes the management at the top is okay to move, but the gatekeepers somewhere in the middle are so comfortable with the way they've been working, they don't want to change. Sometimes the people at the bottom, they accept change faster, where the people on the top don't. I think that cultural transformation is probably the single biggest or most critical transformation of all the transformations they make. I think technology, we keep, internally, we always discuss, I think technology is the easiest part of the transformation, because their technology is ready to, it's off the rack, open source tools, databases, everything is available. It's just plug and play most of the time with some configuration or some customization. it's the changing of the hearts and minds that is, and the larger the organization, the bigger the challenges. So I think the cultural transformation is the single biggest transformation. People are afraid of change. That needs to be addressed. People are fearful a lot of technology, and rightly so. A lot of people are fearful that technology is going to replace what they do, and that is a reality that will happen. So I think, in my experience, some of those challenges are real challenges at the core of an organization. Technology, tech stack, what they choose, how they do it is generally the easier one.
Yeah, I love the, saying that technology is the easy part. I usually equate it to, it's much like, kind of like music. Like the notes are rather, they're static, they're stationary. It's all about how you arrange it properly to get the most out of it. It's not just throwing all the notes you possibly know to make a beautiful song. It's arranging them subtly and perfectly to get that end result.
The orchestration of that technology to serve your purpose, that is how you do it, and that requires a lot of
Yeah,
change internally for people to accept that.
look like you've got something to say, for.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of technology is readily available, right? You don't have to reinvent the wheel, right? Like there have been like machine learning and AI algorithms to validate the identity of a document, right? To help us organize and store documents based on the content that they have, right? They can help us actually create an adjudication or results based on the information supplied, right? Let us help do with the email and fraud checks. If I just look at the mortgage industry itself, a lot of the works that underwriters do these days is manual. And I would say 95% of it could easily be automated with machines, and it can probably do it in a much faster space. Probably I would say in few minutes than in few days, which a risk adjudicator would actually do, right? So eventually that will happen. Banks will bring in just to lower their cost and the operational efficiency. Again, that's why there is a resistance and a fear of technology that is still there in people's mind and hearts. That will replace their jobs, but eventually it will happen, right? You need to upgrade them to put on some better use then, and definitely they should automate, right? In all the financial institutions, I would say not even financial institution, everywhere where you can apply automation to automate your processes and optimize them, do it. It brings much higher efficiency. You can process a large amount of applications. For example, mortgage, right? Typically we see mortgage applications getting processed from somewhere between 7 to 30 days, or maybe even 45 days, depends upon how the load is on your underwriters, right? This can be brought down in a matter of few minutes, right? With the information that, for example, pre-approval, right? This can happen like few seconds.
So we'll put a direct, your email address for all the underwriters to write their angry letters at, at the bottom of the screen later in post. Just kidding. No, but the fact remains is that, I think circling back to my issue, my whole kind of story from the beginning was none of it was efficient. None of it was tailored seemingly towards me. None of it was, I couldn't do what I could do in the branch back at home, or I couldn't separate any tangible outcome from, digitally without going to the branch. And it was, and in that really kind of came the frustration from it all. So
Chris, that fundamentally stems from the financial institutions are still, a lot of them are still in the mindset of process first, whereas what some of the other organizations that we talked about earlier, the Facebooks, the Google, the Amazons, they've actually put the customer first. And that is the single biggest, I think, point that is actually transformed the whole business model or the process model from being a process or product first to actually customer first, expectation management first. And so when your experience was, this is our process. If you want the product, you have to jump through these hoops. Whereas If you go to one of the other ones I talked about, they will say, oh, you're a customer, you are unique, and therefore you have unique needs. Let us serve you better. And that's the fundamental difference.
It's not going to take much to make me switch after this whole experience, I can tell.
And that it was, Chris, and you know what, that's what interacting with financial institutions over the years. Our parents and our parents of parents have been legacy with banks, right?
Yeah, I use my parents' bank.
Your parents, the mortgages with the same bank, the credit card, their lending, their overdraft, everything is with the same institution that their parents used to use, right? That has changed right now. Now you are with the different, your brothers and sisters are with different. Some of the younger generation doesn't go to banks. They go to the neo banks, right? They go to 100% digital players. So they have all virtual cards and they're tapping. They don't need a physical credit card anymore. Their line of credit is digital. The salary comes in, goes straight into their account, which is a digital wallet. So that whole experience has changed. Experience driving.
So see, no, and again, you're really helping me out here with these segues. Is seeing how the whole experience has changed. How there have been these transformations across e-commerce, across social media, across all these other elements that have spoiled me essentially, that have caused my expectations to shift and my demands to increase. What advice to anybody in our audience that they might be in the midst of their own kind of transformation? How would you what advice how do you approach that? Not just to kind of today, but for adapting it for the future.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because and we continue to talk about the common theme here is change, right? Continue to change, adopt, go with the flow. And I think as far as advice is concerned, I think the first one would be revisit your business model with the changing technology and continue to find new and innovative way to acquire customers, number one, and service your customers. So the fundamental one, evolve your business model with the evolving technology and the customer needs to acquire and service customers. The second one would be not to fear innovation and experimentation. Continue to tweak your business model, right? Failure should be treated as education, then failure. And then the typical in the technology world, fail fast and, run to your next experiment. So I think some of the financial institutions need to learn that from some of the technology first institutions is that try, fail, experiment, be nimble, be agile. I think the third one we already talked a lot about, which is embrace the change. It's coming. You have to embrace it. You can't, otherwise you'll get drowned in it. So embrace change. The fourth would be probably to select the tech stack or the tools available to you that fit your culture, your organization. There's so much out there, that you need to find what works for you. And I keep telling people there's so much out there. There's so much open source out there. There's so much cloud out there, which gives you the scalability. They're dependable that you can rely on. So go towards the open source and the cloud solutions. Do not shy away from them because that's where you can play with your business model. You can choose what tool is cheaper that works for you better. You don't really necessarily need to go to the cloud models are so adaptive nowadays that, there's a cloud model for every organization, for every institution, depending on their requirements, their database requirements, their storage requirements, their computation requirements. So I think tech stack fit the tools that, fit your culture, your organization, your requirements. That's probably the fourth one. And the fifth probably advice would be, technology, as we talked about, is always changing, always evolving. Don't get hung on to one, keep changing. So change, technology, evolution, I think those are thematically, the advice that I would like to give out. Zanfer, you want to add something to that?
Yeah. So I second actually Danish on this. So the larger the organization is, the more cultural issues arise, like not to experiment, fear of failure. These are the things that actually startups have. We've learned from startups is that if you have to fail, you need to fail fast, right?
I know what my fees are. They can afford to experiment, like.
No, but it depends upon, see, the larger your experimentation is, the bigger your fear of failure will be. So the idea is actually to run smaller experiments to see if you are headed in the right direction or not, right? It's just not that I will do everything and at once and then I will try to figure out whether this is wrong or right. No, that's not how startups do, right? So we actually divide a larger experiment into smaller ones, just to make sure that, oh, this is working, this is not working. Are we on the right track? Are we not on the right track, right? Then we tweak some of the variables in those experiments and run them again to see whether, did it move the needle a little bit or not, right? That's how you move forward, right? Whether it comes to your business model, whether it comes to your servicing your customers, whether it comes to, changing your processes, even technology, right? Sometimes people are impatient, right? For me to just wait for something which is taking 30 minutes is too much. As we said earlier, right? Customers want everything and they want it now, right? When I click on it, people are impatient. They just want it now. Even you look at the behavior, right? You type something in the search bar, it doesn't show up. You're disappointed. You keep hitting refresh again. So people have become grown impatient, right?
And
This is where
this wasn't for this was us who you were used to dial-up connections, right? Wait for
yeah.
to dial up. Now even 4G isn't good enough for us, right? I mean, that's customer expectations, right? That's moving with technology.
Yeah.
And that
from
sound will be lost to the world forever.
yeah, and from technology standpoint, like as Dani said, look at the open source and cloud solutions. Cloud allows us to do scale much faster. I remember probably 10, 15 years ago when banks had to do a capacity planning and they would order servers and would take months to just get them shipped, installed, have a backup DR and everything. That is all gone, right? That's just take it to the cloud. It's already instantly available. I can just deploy my app today. I can deploy a backup of my app in some other zone. It's already available. You don't need to invest so much on the infrastructure, right? It's already taken care of, right? And technology is always changing, right? The issue we have seen with a lot of organizations is that they actually get hung on a particular tech stack, right? Oh, this is what we do. We don't want to change it. Your stack might get absolute, probably in a 2 years time, right? You need to improve, keep on evolving it. It's not just a one-time activity and exercise that I'm investing in right now, and it's just gonna be the future, or it will serve me for 10 years, 15 years. Probably it would, but there's so much new technology out there in the next couple of months that you might need to switch on to bring the efficiency in.
I completely agree with you. I'm not going to give up my VHS. I still think they're going to make a comeback 100%. But it was still, speaking of technology, another good segue here. Kind of, we talked about, different approaches to transformation and adapting to the future. Now, how in your recommendations from a technology kind of point of view, would you accelerate that transformation? I think you touched a little bit on it before, but kind of like we've talked about, a lot of the biggest hurdles that we see are organizational.
Yeah. So data is actually, I would say data is the key, right? Whether it's behavioral data, customer data, your internal, you need to commoditize it and make it accessible and available to people who need it when they need it, right? So in order to build this, we need to work on kind of bringing microservices into it. As I said, technology stack is changing, right? Our previous applications that were built were like all monolithic applications. One large application would require ages to build, develop, deploy, goes a lot of regression, right? Mm-hmm. This has all changed, right? Now microservices available as to write smaller services, right? Kind of like a Unix or Linux OS tools and utilities that are available that, they just do one thing and one thing, they're good at it, right? That's what the microservice concept is. You write APIs to do one thing, and you could even end up like hundreds and hundreds of APIs to do those tasks. So build microservices in your organization. They could be from fetching the customer data, creating a new customer, to validating the customer identity, to creating their profile. It could be anything can be built around those microservices. And once you build your microservices, there's no limit to the products and services that you can build on top of it, right? Those are reusable components. So that's one. The second is, again, we don't need to reinvent everything ourselves. There's a lot of research that has been going on and is available at our fingertips. So leverage open source. It's already available on open source, most of it. If you look at Amazon, right, 95% of what Amazon is providing as a service is actually built on an open source infrastructure, right? From operating systems to the services that they provide, it's all open source, right? The third is, again, going back, deploying on the cloud. Cloud allows us to deploy it faster, scale it faster. We don't need to do capacity planning. We do, but we can scale it at much faster level, and we can scale it in an automated fashion on the cloud. It might take you a very long time to set up the infrastructure if you want to scale it in your own. Bring in machine learning and AI from your transformation point of view, whether it's predictive analytics, or whether it's building your prediction models, or you doing a post processing to identify the patterns, right? Bring in machine learning and AI into it, right? Bring as much, intelligent robotic workforce, which is, I would say, an intelligent bots to do the task that humans do repeatedly. That would improve your processes. I already touched this on this one. And revisit your workflows, like bring in as much as automation as you can to accelerate those processes, right? Where it's taking maybe something 2 days, how can we bring it down to 2 minutes, right? It's all possible. This is where we're already helping our customers actually achieve all of this with the technology and tools available.
Danish, what do you have to add to that?
I think Ghazenfar touched upon some really good points, and I think to summarize, the last one or two, last 8-10 minutes of our conversation has been: there's a lot of technology available, there's a lot of tools available. Be open to select things, to actually evaluate things and select what works best for you. Just don't go by what XYZ is doing or your competition is doing. Every organization is unique. Every customer is unique. They want to be dealt in their own way. Every organization wants to, should jump into the tools and commit to the technology that works for them to deliver the differentiated experience that their customers have come to expect from them. I think that's probably the most important. And I just want to reiterate, we talked about transformation journey, and I continue to stand by the point that the technology is the easy bit. It's changing the culture, the people, the mindset, the process. Those are the tougher ones to handle than the technology bit. So
yeah, and from technology point of view, regardless of what your stack is, whether front end you're using Angular, React, Go, you have mobile apps written in Kotlin, Swift, Flutter, right? Whether your backend is in Java and Node, and we have actually helped our customers scale up much faster with their existing stack, and improving those stacks with what is actually the trend and where the technology and the industry is actually going, and to make it equivalent to what the Facebooks and Amazons are actually doing to scale.
Okay, no, this is fantastic, and we actually have quite a few questions that have come in, and what you just mentioned, I think, is going to really, really resonate and kind of be a good jumping off point. This person asks, if I'm responsible for a transformation, how and where would I begin it? So we've talked a lot about really, I think, aspirational kind of end goals here, but from a brass tacks point of view, if somebody was responsible for trying to optimize and implement that kind of digital onboarding transformation, where would they begin?
So good question. So what I would recommend is come talk to us. Number one, we can help you actually identify the gaps in between where you are right now by doing an analysis of what your processes and technology stack looks like today, and where you want to be in the future, right? What is the time duration that you want to achieve it? And we can create a milestone and steps to achieve those gaps and fill those gaps in between, whether it's a process improvement, whether it's a technology improvement, whether it's a experience improvement. All of this can go in hand to hand together. Our recommendation is come talk to us. If you are overwhelmed with the technology that is available out there, we spoke a lot about technology in this session. we can certainly help you narrow down with the choices that you can make and move forward very quickly.
So yeah, the natural starting point is assess the as is, which is where you are today and where you want to be, and then create a roadmap onto what elements will take you there, be it technology, be it people, be it process. I think all of that needs to be addressed, in order to get to where you want to be as an organization.
And this just came in. So how do I garner stakeholder buy-in for such an internal change? This is coming from different people, but I think they might know each other. It would need to be top down, would it not?
Uh, it a lot of times it does, Chris, but I think the stakeholder buy-in, it has to be at every level for it to work and to so it has to resonate with the culture of the organization. I know some organizations where transformation and go to market and acquiring new customers is a KPI across the organization, right? Because it impacts the whole organization. So it's what conversation you're having, what sort of communication of the transformations across the organization, how and what your KPIs across the organization is built. Are you walking the talk from a senior leadership perspective? Is the organizational buy-in there for the change from the top to the bottom guy? Is everybody proud of what they're achieving for in a certain company? I think it's not just one element, but it's across across the whole organization that is critical.
I would actually add on to it. So generally speaking, it's the bottom line that actually matters at the end, right? If I'm doing an investment, what am I getting back, right? So money talks, right? Whether your business case needs to be either I'm saving money or I am making money, and this is where we can also help again our customers create that whole plan of what is it that they are incurring right now and what they can potentially do with once they implement this technology and how much faster they can scale.
So I think that the proof is in the pudding, like that, really, and I kind of echo what you guys are saying. I don't think banks are really giving themselves an honest assessment as to where the gaps are kind of lying. And that's where, we're, as an organization, I know we're big in advocates for, empowering teams to do things internally and as an organization, but simply kind of some things you really would just recommend that that third party outside person to come in and give that honest assessment, not just of where you are, but what the hard the hard truth as to what it's going to take to get to where you want to be.
Absolutely, and you'll see all the different types of models in at least the Canadian financial services landscape. All of these, all the large and the medium-sized consulting companies are all engaged with the financial institutions, helping them redo their model and be more digital, be more customer focused and customer friendly. And there are banks who built their own digital banks. There are banks who've acquired smaller digital players and assimilated them. So it's not just one size fits all. Every organization has a different model, different approach. Somewhere it's easier to build one, somewhere it's better to acquire one and custom fit it. So as I said, different things work for different people. It's important to identify what works for you, what is more efficient, what gives you more customers, customers bringing in ROI, start generating revenue from those customers faster, and retaining customers. That's a big one, right? People forget. Customer retention is a key. It's not just bringing them in, but it's also keeping them alive. That's the other one. So I think that's where we help a lot of our clients do the evaluation with them. Different experience workshop, different design workshops, different, planning different journeys, doing user maps and stuff like that, to put together the whole journey and to see how we can help accelerate your customer journey.
I love it. And so do you have anything to add to that, Kazumper? Because I think we're going to have time to squeeze in one last question.
No, let's move on to the next question.
Perfect. All right, this one's a good one. And it's really going to be, I think, topical from each of your domains. So what has and what hasn't worked in your experience when it comes to digital onboarding transformations? Start with you, Kazumper.
So based on the experience that we have working with a lot of our customers, I would say safely say, we can actually divide this into different buckets: technology and processes, right? So again, technology is evolving. We know what works and what doesn't, and how it has worked with the other customers. So based on our experience, we can actually guide our customers to tell them, pick this one, don't pick this one. That's what we can do. The same thing is with the processes, right? Based on the journey that we have optimized for a lot of our other customers, we can help improve the journey for your customer as well by looking into your existing process and see how we can help and automate. We already have experience with that. So we can safely say, this we already tried, this doesn't work, based on our prior experience and the research that we have. So again, we have done a lot of experimentations. We have failed a lot of times. We have learned from it a lot of times. It's all with us. We can quickly help make that decision to help you move faster.
Chris, what I want to add here is that, how we are different. And to your failure question, I think what we do is, that we customize solutions. We don't take generic solutions that we've put in others and bring it and plug and play here. We customize solutions to your organization's unique needs, because every organization, every client, every customer of ours is different. They have different needs, even if they're from the same sector. They have different needs, and we customize those needs, bring our experiences to showcase what has worked in the past, how can we tailor make that solution, and deliver based on your requirements and your customer requirements. So that is how we are different. We don't plug and play a generic solution. We customize our solution to your needs.
And I really don't think you could, because, especially for a bank, it's not only is the idea or the expectation from my point of view just seem jarring for them to take an off the shelf solution for anything. But taking that time to not just understand what it really comes down to, I think, aligning the business needs with their customer expectations, and finding that happy medium that really works for everybody. That does it for our time today. This was a great talk. I think if it wasn't coming to the end of the hour, we probably could have kept going for quite a bit longer. And I do see that we had a couple of questions that I didn't get a chance to address today, but don't worry, we will be sending out the answers to those later on. I wanted to thank Danish and Gazumfer, our two experts, for joining us today. Thank you. I'm sure our audience found everything super informative. I'm glad that my horrible experience doesn't need to be repeated. I just need to maybe do a little bit of bad financial institution shopping around. But yeah, to everybody, thank you again for joining us. Keep an eye out on your social medias. We'll be sharing a link to this webinar as well. We've got some great ones coming up in the near future, so keep your eye out. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.